Good morning, Atonement family. Pastor Ertl here. This is our Sunday morning Bible class. Um, we are on lesson 3 of Focusing on Isaac and Our Faith of Our Fathers series. Today's lesson is the last time we're going to really hear about Isaac. Today serves as a transition from Isaac to Jacob. We see both Isaac and Jacob here today. If you haven't already, please be sure to download the lesson guide. That should be in the description of the YouTube video. You can click on the link there to download it. I also have links posted on church and schools Facebook pages. So please be sure to check those places out if you, for some reason, can't access the description of the YouTube video here. Today's lesson is entitled Family Ties and Family Lies. Yes, we're going to see some dysfunction in God's chosen family here. First of all, we do want to take a look at a chunk of Genesis chapter 25 before we tackle all of Genesis chapter 27. So we really do have a lot of scripture to get through today, and because of that, I don't have a primer for you to kind of get us into the flow of thought for the lesson. We're just going to dive right in. So please have your Bible open. And I'll go ahead and read Genesis chapter 25, beginning with verse 19, going through verse 34. It says, "This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Isaac." By the way, this is the NIV. "Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean from Padan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, 'Why is this happening to me?' So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, 'Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger.' When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, 'Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished.' That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, 'First, sell me your birthright.' 'Look, I am about to die,' Esau said. 'What good is the birthright to me?' But Jacob said, 'Swear to me first.' So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank and got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright." So let's dive into the questions right away. Once again, if you have not had the chance, I would encourage you to please work through these questions on your own first, and if you would like to, talk about them with any family you happen to be with as well. Number one, what was happening to Rebekah while she was still pregnant, and how was that a sign of things to come? Well, the two boys, they were what? They were jostling each other while they are still in the womb. They're kind of having a WWE wrestling match in the womb. It's happening so much that it's that Rebekah kind of seems to be distressed about it, and so she inquires of the Lord about it, right? How is that a sign of things to come? Well, we're about to find out in this lesson that that sibling rivalry between Esau and Jacob was a thing. Number two, what was God's will for the two boys? Point you specifically to Genesis 25, verse 23. God's will was that the older would serve the younger. So this was God's stated will that he talked to Rebekah about. Who is the older? That would be Esau. He was born first. Now, Jacob was born right after Esau. Yes, they are twin boys, so essentially they're always the same age. There's no difference between them except for a couple moments. And as a matter of fact, the picture is of Jacob grabbing the heel of Esau as he is being born, right? So this was kind of a one after the other type deal. How are Esau and Jacob different? Well, Esau is kind of the quintessential rugged outdoorsman who likes to hunt wild game, and he is hairy. Jacob, he is not hairy, and he also kind of tends to be a bit of a homebody. Esau means hairy, Jacob means he grabs the heel, but in a figurative way, it can also mean he deceives. How do we see Jacob living up to his namesake in verses 29 through 34? Well, that's when Esau comes in from the open country. He's absolutely famished and exhausted, and he says, "Hey, quick, Jacob, quick, give me some of that red stew." And Jacob says, "First sell me your birthright." So Jacob kind of takes advantage of the situation, right? He manipulates Esau to get Esau to give him, or to sell him actually, his birthright. So the dig deeper discussion question. Choose one of the following statements to defend. The birthright going to Jacob was Esau's fault, or the birthright going to Jacob was Jacob's fault. Now, if you need to pause it and talk about it with the people you're with or put some thoughts down, please go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go right into it and say that you could pick either one because they're kind of they both have some fault here. Esau, he says he's about to die, but it seems like he's kind of exaggerating, right? He may genuinely believe he's about to die, or he may just be really, really hungry, and in that moment, his birthright as the firstborn is not as valuable as this red stew that he really wants. I mean, come on, Esau. So it does say right there at the end of verse 34, so Esau despised his birthright, right? So scripture kind of makes no bones about it. Letter B, the birthright going to Jacob was Jacob's fault. Yeah, it was. You think about it, Jacob's brother comes in and he is famished and he seems to be kind of distressed about how hungry he is, right? So rather than being like, bro, I got you, here's some stew. No, and Jacob's like, yeah, you can have some stew, but first I need the birthright. Swear it. Jacob manipulates the situation. He's kind of willing to play dirty a little bit. So that serves as kind of the backdrop for Genesis chapter 27. Things really are going to come to a head for Esau and Jacob. We're going to take Genesis 27 all in one shot. So here we go. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I've overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die.' Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau her son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goatskins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. Isaac asked his son, How did you find it so quickly, my son? The Lord your God gave me success, he replied. Convenient. Then Isaac said to Jacob, Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He didn't recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he proceeded to bless him. Are you really my son Esau? He asked. I am, he replied. Then he said, My son, bring me some of your game to eat so that I may give you my blessing. Jacob brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, Come here, my son, and kiss me. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, My father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. His father Isaac asked him, Who are you? I am your son, he answered, your firstborn, Esau. Isaac trembled violently and said, Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I just ate it before you came, and I blessed him. And indeed, he will be blessed. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, Bless me too, my father. But he said, Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. Esau said, Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he's taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing. Then he asked, Haven't you reserved any blessing for me? Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives and servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine, so what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, Your dwelling will be away from the earth's riches, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. Doesn't seem like much of a blessing, does it, by the way? Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. And we're going to go 5 verses into chapter 28. So here's the rest of it. So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him, Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob away on his way, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Thus, the word of the Lord. I know that was a lot, so we're going to tackle some highlights here. There is so much to talk about here, definitely more than we have time for in just one Bible class. So if we don't get to anything that you find that you still have a question about, please feel free to email me, jordan.ertl@atonementmke.org. So number one, what did Isaac intend to do with the blessing? Well, he intended to give it to Esau, right? Now, again, we want to remember that God had told Rebekah the older will serve the younger. But that doesn't have an effect on Isaac's intention to give Esau the blessing. And we're really going to zero in on that in a little bit. Number two, evaluate Rebekah's actions in verses 5 through 9. So what do we see Rebekah doing in those verses? Well, number one, we see her eavesdropping on Isaac and Esau. And then she hatches this whole complicated plan to deceive her husband, Isaac. All the while, she is also making Jacob, her son, an active participant in that deception. Not the best of family dynamics here, right? Not the best of circumstances. Communication between husband and wife seems to be a little bit lacking, at least from what we can tell here in Genesis chapter 27. Proof from verses 11 through 13 that Rebekah and Jacob knew that what they were doing was deceptive and wrong. Now, Jacob states his concern about tricking his father, and it's interesting because the word for trick that the NIV translates as trick really only occurs 2 times in the entire Old Testament. The only other time it happens is in 2 Chronicles 36 verse 16, where it mentions how people were mocking the prophets. So really this word means to mock. So really what Jacob's concerned about is, hey, Ma, if I get busted here, if Dad figures out that I'm Jacob and not Esau, he's going to think I'm actually mocking him. And then what's going to happen? Well, then he's going to curse me. He's not going to bless me. He's actually going to end up cursing me. So it could be that by trying all this trickery, Jacob doesn't get a blessing. He gets the opposite. He gets a curse. So yes, the whole deception scheme carries risk, right? But, and by the way, deception always does. It carries risk. But Rebekah hatches the plan, and ultimately Jacob goes along with it. So they know that there's some risk there. Whereas if this were kind of by the book and straight up, and they're not seeking to do something that's bad or wrong, what would the risk be? But because they're seeking to deceive, there's some risk there. Verses 27 through 29 contain the blessing Isaac intended to give to Esau. So again, we kind of jump through various verses. So those verses just pretty much go through Rebekah going about making the meal to present to Isaac, or for Jacob to present to Isaac, and dressing Jacob up in Esau's clothes so that he smells like Esau, and putting some goat skins on some key places so that when Isaac touches Jacob, he feels hairy, so that Jacob, who has smooth skin, doesn't get found out. So verses 27 through 29 contain the blessing Isaac intended to give to Esau. Compare and contrast with Genesis 25 verse 23, and that verse in Genesis 25 was God talking about the older serving the younger, right? So if you look at it, especially verse 29 seems to fly in the face of what God had said back in Genesis 25. Listen to that again. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. This is the blessing that Isaac had fully intended to give to Esau. So he is planning on telling Esau, may your brothers, i.e. Jacob, serve you. But God had said the opposite was going to be true. And we will also note that the last phrase, the last kind of blessing, may those who curse you be cursed, those who bless you be blessed. If that sounds familiar, it should, because that is kind of echoing one of the promises that God had made to Isaac's father Abraham. So when God was making the messianic promise to Abraham, that was one of the promises that were included. So it seems that Isaac kind of is okay with going against what God had said about the older serving the younger. Number 5, prove from verses 33 through 37 that the giving of the blessing wasn't simply symbolic. So this is more than just words here, some flowery, fancy words that anybody could say, that Isaac could simply be like, oh, okay, well, my bad, So here's the real deal, Esau. Now that I know that it's you and not Jacob. What does Isaac say to Esau when Esau protests about not getting the blessing? Isaac says, I blessed him, and he indeed will be blessed. It's a done deal, Esau. I'm sorry. I can't take it back here. Verse 35, Isaac says the blessing is already given. It's a done deal. Verse 37, it seems that even despite Isaac's ill-advised intentions with talking about Esau being lord over his brothers, God's will, what God had said, still comes to fruition. God's will is still accomplished. Isaac answers Esau in verse 37, I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, Esau? So Isaac, even though he fully intended to give that blessing to Esau, now that he realizes he gave it to Jacob, he has to say, yeah, that kind of has to stand, Esau. I'm sorry. There's no taking it back. There's no do-overs here. You don't get a mulligan. Number 6, what did Esau want to do to Jacob and when? Well, Esau wanted to kill Jacob. When? Esau had said that the time of mourning for his father was near. In other words, my dad's going to die soon. And when my dad dies and when it's the time of mourning for my father, yeah, then I'm going to kill Jacob. So Esau was going to wait until Isaac was dead. And then he fully intended on killing Jacob. That's how mad he was. Number 7, remember how Abraham got a wife for Isaac. Read Genesis 28, 1 through 5, and we did that before. That was the last 5 verses we did. How is Isaac's plan for Jacob similar, and how is it different? So it's similar in that Isaac does want Jacob to get a wife from his relatives, from his extended family, right? From within the family of Abraham. Don't marry a Canaanite woman. It's interesting what Rebecca says about Esau. I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. Evidently, Esau had taken some Hittite women for his wives. And it's funny because if you keep reading after Genesis 28 verses 1 through 5, you'll hear that once Esau found out just how disgusted his parents were with Canaanite women, kind of out of spite for his parents, and because he's all mad, he goes and marries a Canaanite woman to kind of stick it to him a little bit. Anyway, so Isaac's plan is similar as Abraham's was for Isaac in that we're going back to Haran, right? It's different in that you remember that Abraham sent his servant Eliezer over to Haran because Abraham didn't want Isaac to leave the promised land. But Isaac is saying, yeah, you got to leave. Your brother wants to kill you. There's that whole thing too. You're actually going to be leaving the promised land. You yourself are going to be going to Haran to get yourself a wife. And we will find out that soon, very soon, yes, the tables of manipulation and deception are going to be turned on Jacob. More on that beginning next week. Our Dig Deeper discussion questions, once again, if you haven't had a chance to go through these yet, put some thoughts down and talk about them with any family that you're with. please pause the video to do that. So we're going to go through these. Number one, by the end of the account, we have a stolen blessing. We have one sibling wanting to kill the other, and we have that sibling on the run. Who was most at fault? And defend your answer. And really here you got your pick of the litter, because there's plenty of blame to go around. First of all, you have Isaac. It doesn't seem like he takes the God's declaration about the older serving the younger seriously, right? And by the way, you'll notice that it seems that each parent has their favorite son, right? Isaac, his favorite son is Esau. Rebecca, her favorite son is Jacob, right? So you got that favoritism dynamic, which, by the way, isn't going to stop with this family. That's going to be something that comes up again in the future. Anyway, so there's some blame to go to Isaac. There's plenty of blame to go to Rebecca, right? She's the one who hatched this deception in the first place, who set all these wheels in motion. And how does it end? It ends with her sons being turned against each other. That conflict being so severe that one of her sons wants to kill the other one. Talk about a mess. And it was of Rebecca's making, really. Jacob is an active participant in this too. Number one, he had on his own manipulated his brother and taken advantage of his brother's weakness to get his birthright, right? And now he takes part in a deception to have to kind of steal the blessing of the firstborn away from Esau as well. In this whole fiasco, yeah, Esau, for all of his warts, it seems that he is kind of, in this regard, the innocent victim here. What does he do? He goes to hunt some game for his dad, thinking that he's going to be getting the blessing from his dad, right? And through kind of no fault of his own, things kind of blow up when he's gone. So there is plenty of blame to go around. If I had to put blame on one person, I would probably lean toward Isaac. He's the father of the household. If he is willing to take God's message about the older serving the younger seriously from the get-go, none of this kind of happens. Number two, the account of Esau and Jacob seems to consist of nothing but manipulation, deception, and conflict, and this among family. It's tragic, right? But there's good news and comfort to be found in Genesis 27. What is it? And apply that good news to your life. You may have to look for it, look a little hard for it, but how about this? God continues to work through and with the sinful and flawed family of Abraham. And trust me, we have not seen the end. We have not seen the last of the flaws and sinfulness of the family of Abraham. God's chosen family, there is the family drama there, to put it mildly. Yet God is faithful. God is faithful despite all the messes that they make. Why? Because God promised. When God makes a promise, God is faithful to his promise. And so even if I should make a mess of things, God is going to be faithful to his promises to me, not because I have lived up to those promises, but because God is perfectly faithful. That's who he is, and that's what he does. Secondly, God is going to accomplish his good purpose, even despite the failings and foibles and failures of sinful and flawed human beings. You'll notice that God had said the older will serve the younger, and despite all the drama and the deception, that's exactly what happened, right? God is going to accomplish his purpose despite human sin. And so I am not going to be able, in my sinfulness, to throw a wrench into God's grand divine plan, right? In my life, when I am weighed down by guilt, I can take comfort in knowing that yes, in Jesus my sins are forgiven. And even though I may have messed up my life in the here and now, I have not messed up my eternity, because my eternity is what? That's in God's hands. Number three, The end justifies the means. Agree or disagree, and use Genesis 27 to defend your answer. Now, technically, could you make the argument? Well, yeah, because look, that deception ended up with Jacob getting the blessing, right? And God had said the older will serve the younger, right? Well, no, the end does not justify the means. Did Jacob end up getting the blessing? Yes, he does. But does that somehow cancel the deception and the conflict that resulted, where we have one brother wanting to kill the other? No, that doesn't cancel it out. That deception, is what caused all of that mess. So by no means does the end justify the means here. It is a terrible mess. Number 4. What does this lesson teach us about faith? You could say any number of things here, but the point I would like to drive home is that faithful people fall into sin. Faithful Isaac, right? Faithful Isaac. You remember back to how he too showed trust in God when his father Abraham was about to sacrifice him on Mount Moriah. I mean, wow, what trust and what faith in Isaac too. And that was a moment when his faith absolutely did show. But here we have Isaac kind of fallen down here. He neglected his duty to follow God's will. You have faithful Rebekah. You think about all the wonderful things we heard about Rebekah in the story, in the account of Abraham's servant going and getting her to marry Isaac. Wow, what a wonderful believing woman she was. But here, faithful Rebekah runs headlong into this mess of deception. We receive justification by God's grace through faith in Jesus. Our sins are washed away, and we receive the benefits of that through faith in Jesus, right? But believers are also at the same time, the theologians at the time of the Reformation called it simul justus et peccator. That's Latin for at the same time just and sinner. Yes, I am justified freely by God's grace through faith in Jesus, but I still have my sinful nature and I still fall into sin daily. Yes, Jesus' blood pays for it all, and I get those benefits through faith, but I am still sinful in the here and now. I'm still going to fall into it. But God does not hold that sin against me, because why? Because Jesus has paid for it all. Number 5, what is your biggest takeaway from this account to apply to your life? I'm going to leave that on you. And I would also actually be interested to hear what you have to say about that. So again, I'm going to encourage you to take a moment. You can send me a text message. 701-595-1791 is my phone number. Send me a text message or send me an email, jordan.ertl@atonementmke.org. Would love to hear what you have as your biggest takeaway from this lesson. So